Rockshock just killed off the 51 offset fork, and I'm trying to figure out why. Look, this is not against the 44mm offset fork or the reduced offset fork. I love it. I have them. I ride them on several of my bikes. But the 51 offset has a place, and I recently, in the last 2 years, discovered exactly where it lies. The reduced offset fork came about to solve a problem: stability in 29ers. But as we're moving forward in bike geometry, I think we need to take a look at the 51 offset again as a viable option on the front of these bikes. So why did we need the shorter offset forks in the 29er? Short and simple, stability. Chainstays were short, head angles were steep, and the bikes needed some extra stability for the high-speed applications that were starting to happen. The effort was keeping the chainstay lengths on these bikes short, so we're talking 425 to 435 in the 29ers. That's incredibly short. At the same time, head angles weren't anywhere near what they are right now, as bike geometry was evolving in the 29ers to make them feel awesome out on the trail, and particularly feel awesome at speed. The shorter offset fork helped with this. With the short chainstays and the longer reaches, we needed the front end to come back a little bit. We needed more stability in the tire because it took a lot of front rider weight over the front end of the bike to keep the front end tracking well, especially in corners. But here is what has changed recently and what I have discovered. 1. Chainstays are getting a lot longer, head angles are getting a lot slacker, and tire widths are starting to get larger. I am going to use one bike in particular here to highlight these things. It's on the extreme side of things, but I think it's worth noting. So the bike is the Common Cell Supreme DH. Now, if you look at the chainstay length of that bike, the chainstay static is 456 millimeters. That's a heck of a lot longer than the 430 range on 29ers. Not only that, it grows to over 500 millimeters in compression because it's a high pivot. Now, what fork do they spec on that? The Fox 40. The Fox 40's offset on the 29er is 56 millimeters. Why is this? I am a bit of a punter, but I have been doing this for a long time, and I do enjoy experimenting. The bikes I've been riding in the last 2 years have longer chainstays. I'm talking up to 455 millimeters, but I ride a high pivot, and it grows to over 460 millimeters. So what does a longer chainstay do? Well, it naturally places more weight over the front end of the bike to make the bike stable. It climbs better, it descends better. I feel it actually corners better, even though it feels like if it's slow, it's going faster through a corner because of the increased traction, the better balance front to rear. And everyone's complaint with the longer chainstays has been the bike feels lazy, the bike has no pop. You know what I found has corrected this, especially as the head tube angles have gotten slacker? The 51 offset fork makes the bike feel a little bit more alive. So the bike naturally is more stable with the longer chainstay. The head tube angles are getting slacker, which is increasing the trail even more. So a 51 offset fork may offer trail numbers very similar to what was happening with the reduced offset fork, but the 51 speeds up the handling for you. So Fox has the 40 with a long offset at 56. The Manitou Dorado also has a longer offset at 57. To counter that, Öhlins, used by Loic Bruni on his demo, has the option for very, very short offset DH forks. But if you take a look at the specs of that demo, the chainstay is incredibly short. So the chainstay on that demo comes all the way down to 430 millimeters compared to the Common Cell at 456. So my uneducated but slightly tested opinion on that is Loic is trying to make the bike more stable, and on the common cell with the Fox 40, they're making the bike more agile. So the point here is geometry is changing again in 29ers. We're seeing bikes with longer chainstays because they know it offers better stability and better weight balance across the bike. But with the reduced offset fork, you're slowing down the bike even more, whereas the 51 gives you back some of that nimbility. And without, in my opinion, really sacrificing any stability over the shorter chainstay bikes that are out there. But let's throw one more thing in there. Recently, and I've been riding them, 2.5 and 2.6 tires have become a real viable option on these bikes. They're not in excessive weight amounts anymore. They feel great and they offer amazing opportunities on the front end of your bike. The 51 offset fork, I feel, helps speed up the front end where it would otherwise be lagging because of the larger tires. Reduced offset forks obviously have a place, and they were a natural response to the rapid evolution of geometry that was occurring. Reach was getting longer, head tube angles were getting slacker, wheels needed to come back, people needed to find more front end traction out of their bikes. But as chainstays are getting longer in this next movement of geometry, that reduced offset fork is not quite as necessary. And in fact, I think the 51 offset offers more advantages than disadvantages as chainstays get longer. So it looks like Rockshock has killed that option for us, which is a shame. The Lyric has been one of my favorite forks to ride. But at the time of this, Fox looks like it still has a 51 offset, Manitou still offers a 51 offset, and Cane Creek offers a 51 as well. So they still exist as the geometry changes are happening, and you might want to consider the 51 as an option on the front of your bike as the back ends get longer, front ends get slacker. So Rockshock, you'll never see this, but I'm pissed that you killed the 51 and all the trail fork options and the enduro options, because I never see myself going back to a short chainstay length bike. I'm going to be on long chainstays moving forward. And the 51 feels awesome on my slacked out long chainstay bike.